Welcome everyone again. We're now in 2026. I believe we all had a wonderful day. Yesterday being the 1st of January 2026. It's your host again, Susuana Olatunji Komolafe. On my show, my YouTube channel, Susanna on the Move, where we come together to have conversation with Susanna. So this afternoon, we're going to continue on our conversation on conscious bias, a new ideology that's I'm creating a framework to make publicly aware for usage in our policies, our community, our homes, schools, everywhere, and mainly to use this opportunity through this um, ideology of conscious bias to change our views on how we start seeing diversity, equity, inclusion within a community. How do we readdress this? How do we deal with it? And to raise the alarm on our consciousness, because as human beings, our consciousness is becoming much more alive. We are becoming more conscious of who we are as a people in our community, in our homes, and to really start understanding what this word really is to us, opening up our consciousness and using that awareness to address key issues that are fundamental in our cultural heritage um, ways, which lays the foundation to most of the things we do. We talked about focusing on three key aspects of conscious bias that really determine the foundation of our cultural heritage and the influence it has. And these three areas are gender, race, and religion. They're very powerful, those three things. And that's why I'm just going to narrow it down to those three. And we've been talking about it. We've been going front and back. We've talked about gender, we've talked about race, we've talked about religion. And we've talked about the foundation, which is the background in which these all key aspects are, uh, are focused on or based on, or where all these prejudice and biases comes from, which is culture. I'm going to continue the conversation today, and I'm going to continue it by focusing on the consequence of our biases, our conscious biases. The consequence. What is the consequence? And I've created a framework in action. Um, I've created that really on the consequence framework that really will be the basis of our action on impact of conscious biases, the consequence that we experience today. So the consequence framework which we experience today. So if you're joining me for the first time, if you've not been on this channel, um let me know where you're watching from. If you're watching these or listening to these on LinkedIn, let me know and click the button to follow me on LinkedIn. And if you're watching these or listening to these on your YouTube channel, use the opportunity to subscribe to my channel, like the presentation. Put your comments in there. We really want to take your comments. We want to understand what you think about this ideology and how you're receiving it. How are you receiving this ideology? So these are the things we will love to know. And the only way we can get to know these is if you subscribe to my channel, Susanna on the Move, on YouTube. If you follow me on LinkedIn, Susanna Olatunji Komolafe, you see it on LinkedIn. You can follow me. If you're watching this, just go straight and follow me. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe and like the presentation. Just drop your comments there. Let's know what you're thinking. And if you like to come on board, I'm going to share a link, and this link will allow you to be able to join us virtually. If you want to, you can join us. Um, so it's an invite link, and you can find it on the comment space. If you click on it, I'll be able to bring you into the studio to join us. So yeah. So yes, that's what we are thinking about, and that's what we are doing. Um, yeah, that's what we are doing. So we really appreciate if you all can take your time to join us. Yeah, take your time to join us. Yeah. Thank you. As you either follow or subscribe or like us. So let us continue our conversation for this afternoon. And the focus is on the consequence framework of our conscious bias. So I'll start with the word C. C. Um, and in C, and that is cultural capital activated. Cultural capital activated, which in the sense is about marginalizing cultural framework, becoming valuable professional currencies, not hidden burden. So to see the way I break it down. So it becomes a valuable currency for us to use, which is our culture. Our culture from that framework that becomes valuable and not having any hidden burden uh, for us to think about. And that is that's the foundation to what our conscious biases are. Culture. So we go to O, organization operating system re-rating. So what I'm saying that is that in organizations, community, churches, we have to rewrite our operating system, our organization operating system. It needs to change in a way that really allow our consciousness to become vocal, our consciousness to become awoken, knowing that we are becoming consciously with intentionality, being intentional about accountability to all our prejudices and biases. So we say the system defaults to multiple cultural entity points instead of a single dominant pathway. So, though, you know, a lot of people is kicking about the way things. So let's give example. Yes, we want to be inclusive and we want to show diversity, but we're not doing this by excluding anyone or feeling that, oh, no, you're too big, you don't need to be seen. No, we're saying everybody needs to be seen. None can be excluded. So we go to Hein. We're talking about consequence framework. New innovation pathway. We create new ways, and this is part of it. It's generating workshops new on this new ideology and sharing with everyone. Creating a problems, how to solve problem using diverse cultural logics or logistic logics, or closing up the back in terms of our cultural diverse, unlocking previously incredible solutions that shapes the way we see the world, in terms of our new ideology, unconscious bias. So we've talked about CON. So we go to S. We're talking about the consequence framework, structural equity by design. So when you design your organization, the new and the old, when you redesign it, when whatever you're doing, one of the things we want to see is inclusion in diversity. Inclusion is built into um the architecture of today. you know um that the structure of equity by design, inclusion is built into it. When you create that foundational architecture, not added as afterthoughts, accommodation, or but it has to be built in from the foundation. We cannot say exclude ourselves. We cannot rewrite our story to be inclusive. No, that's not what we're doing. There's nothing we're doing that we need to drop, but we just need to um restructure, redesign what our equity means to us, and how do we start seeing that uh in place. So let me have a seat. Remember, we're talking about the consequence framework for conscious bias. We've talked about CONS, so we go to C, communication pluralism. Communication pluralism. Multiple expression styles are validated. You know, that is what inclusion should look like. That everyone views and voice and styles is validated, we figure out a way to encompass this without feeling make isolating anyone or silencing or dimming anyone's light. Moving beyond professional as Western or direct only. Moving beyond this idea of unconscious bias, but speaking out of consciousness, that we're consciously aware of our biases and prejudice. We're taking accountability of these and we're putting in place actionable changes. Actionable changes. We're taking responsibility in putting in place actionable response changes. So then we go to high identity integration. We should allow individual's identity to stay the way it is. And if people choose to change their identity, it can be shared but not forced. That is not the society we want to see. That is not what we pray for. These are the things we want to change. Identity integration. People brings full cultural self to work. Whatever you are, whatever way you want to put it, to bring this to life. Yeah. Oh, outcome we define. So how do we're talking about the consequence framework. We're defining our outcome. Success metrics expand to value community achievement with relational intelligence and leadership. Conceptual leadership. You on learning as competitive advantage. On learning as competitive advantage. Letting go of the way we have always done it. Letting go of all these unconscious biases idea, but become conscious and institution capacity. Sustainable systematic change. On learning as a competitive advantage. Let go of the way we have always done it and becoming an institutional capability. Diversity moves from HR initiative to business. If so, did you see the way we create this consequence framework for our conscious bias? That each of the words singularly we researched and see what it really has in stock and how applicable this will be in this ideology that we are focusing on and trying to get out there. The core consequence of conscious bias doesn't just present harm, it generates new values. And this is what we are doing by transforming cultural diversity from a managed challenge into a design advantage, an advantage to each one of us. Creating system where cultural worth operates as narrative. Mm. So, creating this system where cultural wealth operates as a native infrastructure, generating equity through strategy and cultural utilization. This is what we hope to do, and we hope we can get the support of everyone so that we can make those changes. And you can put this ash conscious bias, ash cultural. Yeah. So it's I think I'm going to add a bit of content here for those of you that are joining us. So I had a bit of technical error there, but if you're still watching me or joining me, this is Susanna on the move. If you're watching on YouTube channel, you can subscribe and like the channel. And if you're watching me live on LinkedIn, you can follow me on LinkedIn. Today, I'm focusing mainly on the consequence of conscious bias. And we're just trying to have conversation around how do we apply the application of the framework to conscious bias, and how these can be used in changing our policies, redirecting our views and opinions. If you look on the screen there as you're watching, you see some ash, ash conscious bias, ash cultural by design, equity framework. So today we're talking about the consequence framework, and I've taken you guys through each of the words f- of and give you the concept that we're using on this conscious bias. We are talking about this consequence of conscious biases. We are exploring the powerful impacts of discrimination and inequality, and how do we allow the foundational uh, cultural basis of our life in ways in which we already live to change and to redirect um, our consciousness, and handle how do we tackle this consciousness that we are awakening into. So as we awaken into our consciousness, and taking ownership of our biases and prejudice, becoming accountable, and taking on the responsibility to make changes that are impactful, what are the consequences that we might go through? And discrimination and inequality may result from conscious biases, and leading to these marginalized communities facing systematic challenges. So we are addressing these consequences of these challenges. Understanding these consequences is crucial to foster equity and justice. If we really want these new ideology to function and to become relevant and usable, we have to deal with all the consequences of bringing this to life. And part of this conversation is around how do we now undo these consequences. So, what are the core consequences of conscious bias? This new ideology, exploring it, pioneering it, and making these changes doesn't just have to prevent harm. It could generate new values by transforming our cultural diversity from a managed challenge into a design advantage, so that it become more advantageous to us, how we create a system where cultural wealth operates as a native infrastructure, generating equity through statistics, cultural um, utilization. So I know that as we have this conversation, as we talk about this move in diversity in different places of work, the HRs we create initiative whereby businesses infrastructure with self-reinforcing feedback uh, can be used. And we're not just here to talk about it, we're also amplifying how these could become our everyday life in readdressing those key aspects of our life: gender, race, and religion. So the consequence framework, and I've given you those. So I'm going to get you to just as we unbonding this all this burden, as we have this conversation, look through your in the comments and see what is it that we're talking about and how are we addressing each of these. Um, so each of those words, each of those alphabet within the word of the consequence framework, and we're using it to address this. I believe that there's so many changes that we can make as we, gather within our organizations, um, as we start rewriting our organization's operating system, that. So, which is what we are saying, that every organization need to adopt rewriting their operating system, how they operate within this new framework of conscious bias. Our consciousness is awakening. Our consciousness is being awoken. We can't shy away from this awakening that we're seeing happening in our community, in our homes, in within our gender conversation, within our gender conversations that we are seeing happening around us, within the our race, and most especially within the faith we share, which really determine the way we live our life in the society and around us. I'm going to take a bit of water. So while I'm just having, sorry, I'm taking a bit of water to drink. I really, we need us to really open our minds, open our mind to this ideology, and start having conversation that can make a meaningful impact in our society. So, what is it? Well, we it should it's. I'm looking, yeah, and I'm trying to see what people are saying as they join in to listen to this on Instagram, sorry, on our YouTube channel and LinkedIn. So we talk about the structural equity by design inclusion, and that this is built into we build this into an architecture, not added as an afterthought. So the idea of an afterthought kind of solution. We want this to be built in. We want this to be built in our places of work, schools, a community, build it into the system, because then it becomes more relevant. It becomes a foundational way of life. We can address this issue more with if it is built into our system. So because we already know what the consequences could be, and in order to address this consequence, we need to build this into our system. We need to build it in through a system, through communication, through multiple expression of our and validating our biases and prejudice. But the idea of validating it and moving beyond with direction of how to really manifest the thoughts and deal with this, and how does this really defines who we are as a people and our consciousness within our community, and how this is really being influenced. So yeah, so this is what we are saying. We talk about identity, you know, we talk about integration of our identity, our way of life. Through again, remember the foundation in terms of our cultural, people bringing full cultural self to work, increasing engagement and reducing coding, switching fatigues, and just understanding our identity as it was, what that means in terms of our consciousness, our conscious biases and prejudice that we might have. What does that really mean, and how are we addressing that, and taking account onto this all these consequences and addressing it, and still being able to allow the ideology to flourish, and how the ideology becomes usable. What is the outcome? How do we redefine our success in terms of the metrics that expands the values of communal achievements, coming together in different aspects and achieving things, relational integration and conceptual leadership? How does this really affect our communal environment? What is it? How are we taking responsibility for all these consequences? How do we unlearn as a competitive way of taking advantage of the consequence? So, what are you doing differently within your community on learning of this, letting go of the way we have always done things, you know, which has become institutional, having the capacity to become more consciously aware of what we are doing wrong or what we say, accepting it and taking ownership. Remember, taking accountability and making change, just making a meaningful, impactful change within our society, you know, taking responsibility for making a change, actionable change, actionable change that can be seen and practical, and to be able to sustain the system, which is going to be the challenge and some of the consequences of changing this whole idea of our thinking. Changing diversity moves from HR initiative to business infrastructure, with self reinforcing and using feedbacks and loops that we might get to redesign the way we see the world we live today and the consciousness of which we are aware of. So, thank you all for watching and joining me on LinkedIn. And for those of you joining me on LinkedIn again, just to remind you, follow me on LinkedIn, drop your comments, and we will address it. And for those of you that might be watching or listening to this on YouTube, share with other people, subscribe to my channel, Susanna on the Move, drop your comments, send your messages, join the conversation if you'd like to be part of this conversation. Send your details, and we can reach out to you, and then we can come together and make this become more relevant. So thank you again today. My name is Susuana Olatunji Komolafe. I'm your host on this conversation on conscious bias and this ideology, new ideology that we are pushing and amplifying this thought to everyone around us. So as I take the step to amplify this as a leader, taking this leadership role, I'm hoping that you're all out there supporting me in amplifying the idea of conscious bias, moving away from unconsciousness bias. Thank you very much.